Boom. We are recording. I'm hearing like a P sound. Hello?
I'm back.
Oh, nice.
What's up, everybody? Today is April 14th, and we are Never Free to Play, a podcast where we talk about all the video games we wish we were playing. I'm one of your hosts, Karch, joined by my co-host, Jason Wright. If you decide you like us, or maybe you want to hate follow us, you can find us at neverfreetoplay.com, patreon.com/neverfreetoplay, or all the other social media where we are never free to play. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, feedback, please send it to us at neverfreetoplay@gmail.com. Jason, how are you doing?
Things are getting real, my friend.
Real? How real?
It's getting crazy out there. Have you been to the store lately?
I actually haven't. I haven't been to the store since like week 2 of this.
Exactly. I had to go out to the liquor store for some essentials today, and I would say probably 50 to 60% of people are wearing masks. And so, I mean, and they're taking the social distancing thing seriously. I'm actually pretty proud of this city for what I saw, going out the past 2 days. I mean, and I kind of kid. I had to go get some other things too. I had to make a Costco run yesterday to just restock on some food, and we were out of dog food, but yeah, people were taking this thing seriously. So, hopefully that's a good sign that, we'll finally peak and get on the other side of this thing. But yeah, overall, I would say I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty optimistic. Things are looking up, man. They have to. What about you?
I'm pretty good. I took a long Easter weekend. We had Friday off from work, and I took Monday, so I'd have lots of time to play a particular game, one you may or may not have heard of that we'll talk about.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I know you haven't, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But it was good. It sucks having 4-day weekends are fun, but then, and it sucks to go back to work, but at least going to work kind of jolts you back into it. And it's kind of a kid. But today I had no motivation to even wake up and get out of bed.
Yeah.
Which I haven't had a problem with throughout all this. But today I was like, ugh, I'm just going to walk over to my table and get started like I did every other day. Except I could just not. I have all this PTO. Why don't I just keep using it? But
right,
I can't.
I have similar things happen to me. It's typically in the summer. I'll have things that I have to take off for. So I'll have a high school graduation, a college graduation, a wedding, Memorial Day weekend, 4th of July. I'll have all this stuff in a row, and so I'll have several 3-day and 2-day weeks. Or no, 3-day and 4-day weeks in a row, work weeks. And then I have to go back and have that first 5-day week. Ugh. And it's just it's a nightmare.
It is. It is a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But otherwise, everything's good. We're good. I'm feeling good.
Sweet.
What kind of liquor did you get?
I'm cheap, dude. I got Bacardi Oakheart. And for anybody who doesn't know what that is,
that's me.
Let me just tell you, it's rum that's more flavorful than Captain Morgan, and it is $20, well, maybe $22 for a 1.75 liter. So from the ultimate consumer, the guy who wants to be, right with his money, I highly recommend it for $22, especially if you can mix it with some Coke.
I do love Coke. And
Coca-Cola,
I love cheap
man.
Stuff.
Yeah, get you some.
Had some Dr. P earlier.
Nice. DP, baby.
DP. All right. I've got a glass of water here with a hair in it, so let's make this quick before I drink it and get to the bottom of this glass. So let's get into some housekeeping. We're almost all the way caught up on YouTube, so you can go ahead and watch or listen the latest episode, probably by next Sunday. So go follow there and like and subscribe, even if you're already listening on the free podcast feeds. And
Greg says it helps with the algorithm, so you got to go do it. Like, subscribe, watch it, play it while you're sleeping. You can just mute it, just play it for the algorithm, guys, for the algorithm.
You got to do it for the almighty algorithm. We all bend the knee to the algorithm.
We certainly do.
But yeah, feel free to rate us too and leave comments. Those are probably also things that are good for the algorithm.
Only if you're going to rate us highly.
Well, of course. I know we don't have a lot of listeners, but people who do listen understand that there's nothing but 5-star content here. So there's no need to...
I'm pretty sure my mom accidentally rated us 3 stars when she was trying to subscribe.
I have to call Mrs. Hartalona, and have a talk with her about rating correctly.
I don't think she knows she did it. I mean, maybe she didn't. Karch is editing the doc, everybody.
The doc. I meant to introduce the doc in the opening today. Oh, well.
Okay, that's all we have for housekeeping. What is your aversion to using bullets?
I'm trying to... You had it indented.
When you bullet something after you've already made it, it indents like everything.
You're really bad at doc formatting, and it's okay. I was just fixing it.
I don't know what to tell you, Karch.
Yeah, you do. You're going to tell me our corrections.
All right, Greg, if you're ready for it, start corrections right now. Actually, last week, I listened to the episode twice, and I couldn't find anything that was worth putting in correction. So I would say we were perfect last week. And if you don't believe us, go back, listen to episode 7, write in and prove us wrong.
Do it, you cowards. You can't argue with that, though. Listening twice, that's 4 times as many times as I listen to it. So
Wait, because you only listen to it a half a time?
That's right.
You depressed me. I can't believe that you don't even listen to our podcast.
I don't have podcast time anymore. My car rides are gone, and the dog walks just aren't long enough. I'm cleaning less because I can't muster the energy to do so. And
you know what I do? I make my son, so I have a 3-year-old son, and I make him listen to the podcast when I push him on the swing set in the backyard. He doesn't like it. He keeps asking me to play Taylor Swift. I'm like, no, we're listening to my podcast, kid.
It's a hard decision to make, though, between the two. I don't fault him for that.
Yeah, I know.
All right. So last week was news heavy, and this week was not, which is fine because it was game heavy. But there are a few things of note. Ghost of Tsushima will still be slated for June 26 over at IGN. Matt Kim has an article. There was some slightly extra news about the game, and then in addition to that, PlayStation or Sony said that everything was still full force on that date. So even though, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I don't quite understand that decision, and I honestly don't even know that, because they mentioned it so offhandedly that I'm not sure I believe them.
Yeah,
but I guess we'll see. I mean, it's possible that there were ulterior motives for delaying The Last of Us Part 2. Or maybe, Ghost of Tsushima got delayed one time. I wonder if it's possible that they had already started.
I don't think it did.
I thought it got pushed out of the way for The Last of Us.
No, I think it said summer. I don't think they ever gave it a date. And then they said summer. And then they said June 26th fairly recently. But I don't think it ever got officially delayed.
I thought it was slated for Q1 and then it got pushed out when The Last of Us got delayed in the last fall. We'll put that in corrections. That will be one thing we can put in corrections for next week.
But yeah, I mean, as far as believing them, it's sure, yeah, maybe not. I don't know or really care at this point because it's whatever. There's still stuff to play. I really am very interested to play it. I am excited about this game, but not in a Final Fantasy VII kind of way.
Right. To me, it's more just a curiosity of if you delayed The Last of Us Part 2 and Iron Man VR, how did this one manage to still hit its date? But at the same time, you've got Xbox games that are launching on time in the same time period. So it just kind of makes me reevaluate what are their motives for delaying those two games that were delayed last week.
What was the date Last of Us was supposed to come out?
May 29th, I think.
Okay, so a little over a month and a half. We've got about 2 2 to 3 weeks before we hit that same amount of time between June 26th. So we'll see. We'll see how long it is. But my opinion on the matter is that it's two things. There's something they're not telling us, which there's always something they're not telling us.
Sure.
And then I think Ghost of Tsushima is just going to be the thing that they try to do digitally. I think it's big enough, but not too big. So to the whole Iron Man VR thing, Iron Man VR is not worth sending out to die. It's probably no cost because it's such a niche thing. Let's go ahead and keep it. It was niche, but it was also going to be a pretty big deal for VR. Yeah. So like on that front, I'm sure, and who knows what Marvel / Disney has to do with it too. So there's always that to consider.
I also heard that there's a potential that there was like a special edition console that was going to launch aside that.
Then 100% it's that it has everything to do with that.
Maybe, and I don't know if that's true. I don't want to like start
if it
rumors,
is, though,
but if it is, yeah. So then that one makes sense, and you couple it with maybe there were some production issues with The Last of Us Part 2.
Right, but they know that they know how much they can get out of it, and they're not willing to not squeeze as much as they can out of it. So they're going to push it back and they're going to wait. But Ghost of Tsushima, big deal, but it's first party. Really good game probably, but it's a new IP.
Right.
And it's by Sucker Punch, but they haven't done anything in a while. It's all these kind of like, it's this perfect, to me anyway, it's this perfect testing ground. Like, well, we got to do something in this stretch of time because we were going to have 2/3 huge things. We got to do one thing. Let's do this. Let's put this out. And then, who knows? Maybe they've got some physical copies that they're going to try to send out as best they can, but I don't know.
Well, and it always does seem like they're more willing to experiment with newer IPs. Like Horizon's coming to PC. You would never see them put something like God of War on PC, for instance, but they are willing to experiment with those kind of newer IPs that don't have strong ties to PlayStation. So anyway.
They should put it on PC.
What, Horizon?
No, God of War.
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess the closest you'll ever get is PlayStation Now. But no, I agree with you. That would be really awesome to see it running natively on PC. Like if I could buy that game in Steam, it would be amazing. Or even if I had to get a launcher, kind of like the Xbox app on the PC where you use Game Pass, I would be okay with doing something very similar with PlayStation.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway.
But as far as the game itself, they announced that they're going to try to stay away from like waypoints and potentially fast travel, and they're going to like rely on the actual visual cues for memorizing the map and getting around and stuff, which I think is cool because I was playing Final Fantasy VII and there's a map and there's a mini map in the HUD and all that, and it destroys my natural ability to just memorize something that I'm spending some time in, and I miss all the fun details they do, and I don't know where I'm going, so I'm constantly pulling up the map, and it's a cycle that repeats on itself to the point where I'm in the map maybe more than half the time when I'm in an area traveling around. It's like, what's the point? Like,
right. And not only that, but I love this design choice because I do feel like too many games make you feel like you're just going down a checklist for quests. And it's like, oh, I'm just set my marker here. And then I go from point A to point B as the crow flies. I don't explore anything. I don't talk to anybody. I don't pick up anything. I don't encounter any enemies. I'm going from point A to point B. I will do the thing that I have to do. And then I'm going to go on to the next thing that I have to do. I mean, that's very much how I felt playing the newest Assassin's Creed, Odyssey. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of Ubisoft games are like that. I mean, a lot of people call those checkbox games or whatever, like their whole genre. And there's something to be said. I mean, those are fun games, but this gives you a different level of immersion that you might not have. You might have to talk to an NPC and they tell you, oh yeah, it's west of this mountain with this obelisk on top or whatever it is. You might have to actually do some real digging as if you were that character to play the game. And I just think that's so cool. In fact, on that, I can't remember what YouTube channel it was. It might be Game Maker's Toolkit, but they were talking about this level of immersion. And I think it may have been The Witcher 3, but don't quote me on that. But there's a game where it kind of has the option to turn off the map. But the way that they designed the game is such that you could get enough detail from talking to people and reading like your journal, and going back on those conversations and revisiting them, that you could play the game without the map. And I just think that's so cool.
Right, because I've recently played some Witcher 3. I haven't played a lot of it, but you can lose yourself in just constantly looking at that map, and it really just kind of kills a lot of the fun of running around finding stuff. Except then they put all those markers. It's a hard thing to do, especially when the worlds are so big. So I applaud, Sucker Punch for making this decision, and I haven't seen anything about the game yet aside from just Samurai's Japan, cool. So I don't know how big it is or like how necessary markers and maps and waypoints are even going to need to be. But the fact that they said it means that you would probably normally expect it. So like I said, I think this is really cool, and I'm again already excited to play it, and this makes me warmer to it already.
Agreed.
All right. Next up, we have an item submitted by one of our listeners, Josh.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you, Josh. Google Stadia Pro tier will be free for 2 months as a trial. This is TechCrunch Cole Dewey, some guy named Cole Dewey over at TechCrunch reporting on this.
It's Cold Ooey.
Cold Ooey. Either way, I'm saying it wrong. But it looks like Stadia still has yet to release the free tier, but they are offering a free trial of the Pro tier. So you know a little bit more about that. Go ahead and tell people how Stadia's rolled out their ridiculous service, Jason.
So this is one of the most bungled rollouts that I've ever seen. And at this point, I just kind of feel like Google's abandoned this before it's even gotten off the ground because it didn't have that instant success. And I might be getting too into the weeds here, but I've read and I've heard that this is kind of Google's culture, is that the only way to get promoted is if you're leading a project or if you're working on a big initiative. But then once you get that promotion, there's nobody there with that passion to carry it forward, which is why you see them start these things up and then abandon them. I don't know how true that is for this, so I don't want to speak too soon or whatever. I'm not trying to cut it down, but when Google Stadia was announced, it was announced that they were going to have a basic free tier and then a pro tier. And I believe the only thing that pro tier allowed you to do was, if I'm not mistaken, was stream at higher resolution. So if you wanted to stream it, I think at 1080p, it may have been 720p, but I'm pretty sure it was 1080p. Then as long as you had the license for the game, you could run it at 1080p streaming from Google Stadia for free.
I think performance was also something they offered, like 60 FPS, but
right. No, I think you're correct there. For whatever reason, I tie those things together, but I know that's not the case.
Yeah, it's because they belong together. So,
so that was the initial promise, was like for $5 a month, you could have the pro tier, which just allowed you to play your library and have it look better and perform better. But if you just wanted to buy the game on Stadia, you could stream it for free.
Which still isn't available.
It still isn't available, exactly. They're still in this weird beta period, and I don't quite understand why, because the free tier was supposed to come in, I want to say January, and everything's been so quiet about this. They're still in this weird beta where they haven't released it to, as far as I know, they haven't released it Stadia to any devices beyond just the Google Chromecast. So the promise of this was that you'd be able to stream games from Google's server, much like a lot of these other streaming services that you and I have talked about. You'd be able to stream it from their server to your phone, to your laptop, to your tablet, to your TV via Google Chromecast, which is their set-top box. But the pre-order period was you would pre-order this Google Chromecast, and then once you receive that hardware, you could stream Stadia to only that device, and it would come with the Chromecast and the controller. So I think the Founders Edition was like $120, and that basically gave you access to the beta. And then it was supposed to open up to everybody on multiple devices starting in January of 2020, and I just haven't heard anything about it. But yeah. I mean, I guess maybe they're trying to get more people in this way before they open it up. I'm not really sure what the motivation is here.
I don't think there is any motivation. Whatever plans they had, clearly just they've unraveled, and it's to say it's failed, who knows? But I'm not interested. I don't want it. Not even for free. I'm not. Well,
see, the thing is that I don't think you're getting any games free. I think it's just
I know.
Service. Destiny 2 might be free to play on there, but I think that's it.
Because Destiny 2 is free to play.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I don't even know that I'll jump in there because I'm have no need to. I have a PC that can play it.
Like it's even just creating an account and getting set up, as easy as that might be, is still too much work for nothing. Because that's all there is. There is nothing to offer to me to even click on their website at this point.
Yeah.
I'd rather just buy the game, because I still got to buy it, and that's fine. I'm not expecting a free game, but I got to buy the game and play it somewhere else. I will just do that.
Right.
I don't need to stream to my phone that badly.
Well, you can't stream it to your phone anyway.
You know what I mean? Like, once this is presuming all the things they said were going to happen are going to happen once the free version is up and running. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they hit some technical difficulty and they just, silence is better than bad news.
That's what I wonder too, because I do wonder about the impact of the coronavirus on this as well, because Xbox was supposed to launch Project xCloud out of beta this year, and so far we're through the first quarter and I haven't heard anything about it. And they said it, and they announced it back in November as if it were imminent. They had already started the beta. Now, they had their Inside Xbox 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, maybe it was last week, where they have now like expanded into more European territories only with the beta.
Yeah. So
it makes me wonder what's going on this front. But then you see other services like Shadow expanding into more like all states. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. It's kind of strange.
Yeah. Good luck, Google.
Yeah. Wish you the best.
Yeah. So Resident Evil 3 is making some waves. It's not being quite as well received as Resident Evil 2 Remake, but it still seems like it's a pretty good game overall. I know our friend Robert, he was playing it. He really liked it. Still like 2 more, but he really liked it. And it was really short, but they're always usually kind of short. There's no such thing as like a long Resident Evil 2 game, except for maybe Resident Evil 4, which, according to sources, as reported by Video Games Chronicle, Andy Robinson, is getting its own remake and is slated for a 2022 release. And that is something I can get behind. Did you ever play Resident Evil 4?
I played a little bit of it on the Wii back in the day. So I think if I'm not mistaken, this was a cross-generation, and they released this game both on the GameCube and the Wii?
No, not really.
Or did they remaster it for the Wii? It came out,
it was at least a timed exclusive, because eventually it would come onto other platforms, but it was originally GameCube exclusive, and it was crazy popular, really well. It was the first and only Resident Evil game I played for a really long time, and I loved it. My sister loved it, which is weird, because at that time she was, probably like 10 or 11. But we played that game to death over and over again, because those games are, have a lot of replay value, whether it's some sort of new game plus or just, do a quick run or whatever. But yeah, eventually it came out with like extra content to PS2. And then finally, once the Wii was a thing and motion controls were really popular, they did do a port remaster that took advantage of the motion controls. And I never played that version, but I hear it's like really good, and that the motion controls really enhanced it quite a bit.
I've never played the original, but I really, really liked the motion controls with the Wii version. The only thing is my arms got kind of tired, because I tried to play it like standing up. I was prepping for VR. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I got to the escort mission and I was like, nope, done.
You should have pushed through, because it's not that long. It is one of the worst escort missions I've ever had to deal with, but for the most part, if I'm remembering correctly, and it's been a really long time, the escort mission is really just more annoying than it is difficult. Like, she's just the person you're escorting is just around for a while, but at no point is she like, I think there's a couple things where like, there's mobs of people coming at you and they will carry her off if you let them, but it's really not that difficult. And then it never comes up again. Like, I think she gets taken off for good, even though you're supposed to be escorting her around.
Well, see, and that's the thing. I mean, I didn't know that, and I didn't look it up. So I was like, oh, I'm going to have to carry, because I think at the part of the game I was at, I think my objective was to save her. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't, I don't know. I don't know if that's even quite halfway through the game, but I remember getting to that point and being like, I can't do this the rest of the game. So I am done.
Yeah. No, it's available on Switch right now. So if you want to go get it now and not wait 2 years, I would definitely recommend it. It's pretty cheap. It's not as cheap as it should be, but it's pretty cheap. I don't think it is the it's got all the content, but I don't think it's the Wii one. So I don't think there's any kind of like gyroscoping, motion control, aiming or anything like that. But still, it's a great game. And anybody who likes games like Resident Evil, any kind of over-the-shoulder third-person shooter, or of course, zombie shooter games, it's really good. It's not survival horror for sure. It's definitely a step away from that, more so than any game in the series had been to that point. And a lot of people didn't like the way it went after that. But everybody loved this game. It's one of the high. I think I was reading the article just now. Where was it? 2005's Resident Evil 4 is Capcom's highest rated game of all time, according to review aggregation site Metacritic.
With even higher than Resident Evil 2 Remake? Because I find that hard to believe.
Supposedly. We'd have to double check that, but that's what this, I feel like that'd be an easy mistake not to catch in an article this recent. But that's higher than both RE2 Remake and the incredibly popular Monster Hunter World, which is the best-selling Capcom game.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
So, and by the way, I just surprised me though because that's how good that game is. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's $30 on the Switch.
No, that's not bad. That's worth it. That's still worth it. But yeah, so excited to see that in 2 years because
sure,
it's a great game that could. And you'd have to do less to that one. With RE2, they did quite a bit. They try to do really faithful kind of recreation, but they did make some changes here and there just to bring it up to modern times. You wouldn't really even have to do that with Resident Evil 4. There's some QuickTime events that really suck that were plagued game development at the time that were just super popular, but you could take those out and then bam, you've got a perfect game.
Sure. And one other thing to note on this, which is kind of interesting, that when I was reading through, Resident Evil 2 Remake was developed by an internal Capcom studio. So it was announced in 2015 and released in 2019. Resident Evil 3 Remake that just came out this past year, or actually the last few weeks, right, Karch?
Mm-hmm.
That was developed by an external company called Redworks, and they had some help from some internal Capcom resources. So this newest one is going to be developed by another external developer called M2. And that's made up of a bunch of former Platinum and Capcom employees. And I'm sure they'll probably also be able to tap into internal Capcom resources. So it'll be interesting to see how this one's received, because I wonder how much of Resident Evil 2 remakes, it got a lot of accolades and it was several people's outlets claimed it was the game of the year last year. Whereas RE3, I won't say that it's been a lukewarm response, but people obviously draw that natural comparison and people are saying 2 was better. So I wonder how much of that was just the source material and how much of it was internal Capcom versus external studio. So I think RE4 might tell us that being a beloved game, but an external studio. So
I think RE2 just has the better source material. I think it's just a beloved. I know for a fact RE2 original versus RE3 original, RE2 is just the more beloved game, period. Sure. So when you remake them both in equal measure, which it seems they did, it doesn't seem like they, even though they outsourced it, so to speak, they didn't cheap out.
Sure.
It seems like it's just as good. I think it's just a naturally shorter game. It was just a much smaller experience, and that's why they tacked on, probably anyway, instead of making it a separate thing, the Resistance portion, which is the multiplayer component to Resident Evil 3. But it really is its own separate game. You're just getting 2 for 1 when you buy that. But people love Resident Evil 4, and any excuse to play it again on modern hardware with modern graphics is they're going to eat it up. You're going to see Resident Evil 2 style, unless something else comes out that year that just blows it out of the water, which isn't a lot that we know about right now, except for things like Breath of the Wild 2. So, right now, if it can hit that date, it's looking to, scoop up a lot of interest and accolades and stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So until then, though, we're going to have to deal with other things like the ESRB and their very slow-moving changes. They will now be indicating when when purchases are randomized in a game. So currently the ESRB rating system, that the E for everybody, T for teen, M for mature, etc. I don't know, a year or two ago, especially at the height of controversy when in-game purchases and randomized loot box and all that stuff was coming to a head, they finally did slap on something that says this game has in-game purchases. Well, that's games these days. There isn't a game out there almost, except for things like Doom Eternal. I think that was a big selling point, was we have nothing in here that you can purchase with real life money. Almost every game has that, so that's not really much of anything. And at the time, people were like, this is not even a half measure, it's nothing. you need to indicate that there's like, some people called for like, oh, you got to make it adults only. I'm like, well, that was never going to happen. But they did want people to indicate that there was randomized content as far as the in-game purchases. And well, they finally have. So in a little subnote, when it says this game has in-game purchases or whatever, it'll say something along the lines of like randomized. Here, I'll pull it up here so I can get the exact.
So basically, we're talking about loot boxes here, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's you pay real money or in-game currency sometimes. You get a thing that has stuff in it. You don't know exactly what's in it. They'll list, the odds, and everything has a guaranteed this or that, but it's always 4 tiers of rarity: white, blue, purple, and gold. Almost all the time is the colors they use. And you're fishing and hunting for that gold item, but it only pops up once in every 20. So you get 3 free ones a day, and then you got to drop 20. It's the whole thing. But what is it?
People's aversion to this seemed twofold. Just like, one, that it was annoying when publishers and developers would tie these mechanics to game progression. Mm-hmm. And so like Star Wars Battlefront 2 got in a lot of hot water for that, because basically they designed the game such that it was really hard to progress without spending real money. It was really hard to be competitive in the multiplayer without spending real life money on abilities and weapons and progression.
Well, in addition to that, like, it was just obscene how much currency you needed to get things like a hero like Darth Vader. It was dumb how much time you needed.
So I think that's like one aspect of it. And then the other one, which I almost feel like this is the equivalent of like, won't somebody think of the children? But they're like, well, what about, this is a lot like gambling. This is a lot like, this is you're exploiting people who have those habits, which I fall more on the side of like, it's just annoying. I think the other thing was the other arguments just kind of roped in to politicize it. I'm not in that camp. Mm-hmm. But again, I don't have a gambling addiction. I have, other vices. So, maybe that's wrong of me to say.
I mean, I am in that camp, and I'm not going to get into it too deep here in a sec, but, I'm all for this kind of thing. I do find it strange that it's happening now of all times.
Sure.
When, like, I don't remember the last time I heard somebody not named Jim Sterling talk about, loot boxes in a game.
Right.
Being this big deal, like, because people did pull, like, especially Epic and Fortnite, when they kind of created the model of the Battle Pass, which was basically a pseudo subscription to their season of Fortnite, where you what is it, like $20-$25, and you get a bunch of stuff as long as you played the game on a regular basis in a certain time frame. You would acquire the experience or whatever. I don't play Fortnite, so I don't know exactly how it works. But basically, it was a $20 privilege to earn a bunch of in-game stuff, which seemed super fair to me, especially for a free-to-play game. For $60 games, it's a whole other can of worms.
Right.
But I just, again, because of how successful that was, a lot of other games started doing that. Blizzard and Overwatch continue to have their loot boxes, whatever they called them, I don't remember. But there was no pressure at the moment. So maybe there was more pressure still. Like, maybe other countries were just continuing to try to block the bigger publishers like EA with their FIFA and Blizzard with their Overwatch and stuff. And the ESRB just finally saw this as an opportunity to, get some good press during these trying times. Sure. And, I don't know. It just seems like a very strange time to do it, but here it is, and hopefully they don't take it out.
Well, maybe they just had free time because the ESRB is a creation of the ESA that runs E3. So with E3 being canceled and no digital event, maybe they're like, now we got some time on our hands.
Exactly.
What are we going to do with it?
It was just a resources game. They didn't have the resources previously to write the 4 words on the box.
Exactly. It can be hard, man. These are trying times. These are unprecedented trying times.
Unprecedented. Speaking of unprecedented, PlayStation cares about you staying at home and wants you to play their games.
We're all in this together, guys.
We are. Us, PlayStation, and Burger King.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll be giving away Uncharted, not just Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection. So that's the remastered 1, 2, and 3 for PS4, and Journey for PS4 for free starting April 15th through May 5th. So if you don't have those, you can go grab them.
For free. You don't have to be PS Plus or anything. You can just go get them. Right.
These will be free to own forever. They'll be your games on your account at that point. similar to the Epic Game Store. So you go there these days, once a month or once every 3 weeks or whatever the time frame is, and they offer 2 free games. There's no strings attached. I mean, you have the Epic account, and I'm sure some people would ream me out for saying that there's no strings attached because, let's face it, there's always strings attached. But those are free to own. There's no service there involved either. So previously, PlayStation Plus offers quote-unquote free games as long as you're paying for the service. And as soon as you stop paying for the service, you no longer have access to them. So that will not be the case with these. And hey, if you've never played Uncharted before, now it's perfect fine to do it because it's such a good series. First one's a little rusty, but it's worth playing to get to the second and the third one.
Agreed. These games are fantastic. And if you are a PlayStation Plus member, Uncharted 4 is the PS Plus free game for April. So Perfect. You could play the whole series for essentially, I don't want to say free because you're paying for PlayStation Plus, but at the same time, it's a pretty low barrier to entry if you wanted to play through all these games, and they are all really amazing games.
Yeah, you could buy PlayStation Plus for a single month, and play through Uncharted 4 really quickly. And
yeah, but then you'd have to play through the first 3 first.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. It would take me a year to play through 4 games.
I'm not talking about people who don't have time to play.
No, well, anybody listening to this podcast is never free to play, Karch.
Are they?
I don't know.
Play? I don't
know. We have like a whole 10 people.
I think they are. They're listening to this, getting a strange, twisted delight about how pathetic we are.
Probably.
Sean, Josh,
Kane, Kit.
Kit's not listening.
Kit, you better be listening. Kane, you better still be listening. I don't know if Kane's listening or not anymore. I don't. I'm fairly confident Sean and Josh are.
Oh yeah, they're diehard fans till the end.
Yeah,
which will probably be next week. So
right. Yep. You already told me you lost the passion for this, so I just figured we got like a couple more weeks and you're gonna be done.
I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something else. I want to start a new podcast about bees or how good the Beatles are.
How about the history of bees?
The history of bees and the Beatles.
Ooh,
not the bug. The
call it the. Can we call it the B words?
The B words. We'll workshop this later.
Okay.
All right. That wraps up news. It went a lot longer than I intended to, but I had a lot to say about it. So
you had so much to say, and we still have to talk about Final Fantasy VII.
Have to? Get to, Jason. All right. So I'm locked and loaded on that, but why don't you tell me what you've been playing, and then I will take the rest of the time to talk about what I've been playing.
Great. This is going to take me like no time at all to tell you what I've been playing. So basically this past week has been very true to the theme of the podcast. I honestly, it's been a combination of like not having the time and not having the energy because my son Luke, he's 3 and he hates sleep, and he's been somehow managing to stay up till like 10 or 11 every night. And it's just, I think part of it is he's learned how to leverage potty training as a delay tactic. So like he will have been laying in bed for an hour and then he decides he has to get up and poop. And like it takes him 25 to 30 minutes on the potty to actually poop. But like we're trying to encourage it. So what do? We made the mistake of being like trying to call his bluff and being like, well, fine. If we're sitting here for 25 minutes and you haven't gone yet, you're going to go in your pull up. And he was like, good, I want to go my pull up. So then he like gets off the potty and is like, goes in his pull up. Then he needs a pull up change. My point is, I haven't had a lot of time. You don't get a lot of downtime when like your kid stays up till 11 and you're trying to go to sleep by like 11:30. So I did take another chance to try to play some Half-Life Alyx in VR, but I've been running into some issues trying to make that happen. And I swear, talking to Tyler, we both agree that the Oculus has gotten a lot worse since launch in different issues that we never had at launch, like disconnects or controllers losing tracking or games just freezing. The main problem I've been running into is controllers losing tracking. And we think we may have pinpointed, because we both have the same motherboard, we may have pinpointed the issue down to being like a USB power issue. So like you have to use a USB 3.0 port for VR, but I don't know that all USB 3.0 ports are created equal. So the ones that are attached to the motherboard, you're splitting the power resources by everything else that's being powered by the motherboard. So the graphics card, or sorry, not the graphics card, the CPU, the RAM, like you're splitting that power distribution. The integrated graphics, if you have those. If you get a PCI USB card, it will have a direct connection to the power supply and you get more power. So we think that constrained resource on the USB card is what's causing those drops. He found a card that everyone recommends for $20. He's going to try it. My whole point in telling you all of this is that I haven't been able to play Half-Life. It's been crashing.
That sounds like way too much work that I'd ever want to deal with.
It is. It's like how much work you want to put in. I mean, I spent. I don't know. Maybe I'm making it sound worse than it is, but
Sounds pretty bad.
I got to this one part. It was kind of hard. I died 3 or 4 times. I finally beat it, and I lost tracking as I was killing the last enemy.
Oh man!
And my game froze, and I couldn't, and it was the thing where like, not only did my game freeze, but the last enemy killed me, so I couldn't even save.
Yeah.
But to be like, oh, well, at least I killed that wave of enemies. So I stopped playing that, and I don't know when I'm going to go back to it because I'm kind of mad. So I've been playing a lot of what I'm calling quarantine gaming, and we've been doing like Zoom calls and stuff, and playing like Jackbox and Rocket League. With people, so hopefully everybody knows what those are. I think I talked about Jackbox last week. Everyone should know what Rocket League is.
Stop. If you don't, please stop.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we want you as a listener if you don't know what Rocket League is.
I don't even play Rocket League, but I don't want you as a listener if you don't.
So anyway, yeah, I played a little bit of that with my younger brother, who's not Greg. And yeah, no, it's been just kind of some social gaming for me. What about you, Karch? What have you been playing? I couldn't take a guess at all. I have no idea what you were waiting for.
You can't see me, guys, but my smile is so big right now because
it's your moment to shine.
Final Fantasy VII Remake, and man, oh man, it's so good, so good. Oh,
tell us all about it.
So. Back when the PlayStation 3 was still just a dream and hadn't come out yet, Square, in conjunction with Sony, for some ridiculous reason, did an amazing tech demo using the PS3's engine, I assume. I don't know why else they would do this. Of the opening scene from Final Fantasy VII. In all of its, nostalgic glory, updated to what was amazing graphics at the time. The PS3 was a powerhouse, and it showed, and the tech demo did its job, showed what this system was capable of. And then they proceeded to not only not make that game for a long time, but they almost immediately said, oh, that wasn't real, guys. What are you talking about? That's stupid. We're never going to remake Final Fantasy VII, because that's definitely breaking case of glass kind of stuff. Well, they finally did it, and it's here. We've been waiting about 5 years, I think a little less. And there's not a lot of times in life about anything where you're excited for something for that long and it comes out and it's meeting all of your expectations and more. And Final Fantasy VII Remake is doing that 100%.
Well, that's amazing to hear. So I think it was episode 2, you and I both played the demo. I really enjoyed the demo. I don't know if I enjoyed it enough to actually play the game, but like, since the demo, tell us how far in have you gotten? Like, do you like the changes they made? Tell us all about it.
Yeah. So, as of now, I'm about 12 hours clocked. So
wow.
We subtract maybe like 30 to 60 minutes of like extraneous bathroom or walking away to talk to my wife or deal with the kiddo for something or get, all those things that,
sure.
Keeps the clock running. And if I don't like go to the home screen or whatever and do all that stuff, it keeps going. But yeah, about 12 hours. And judging by what people say, it's about a 30-hour game, give or take, depending on how fast you skip through it. There's a lot of cutscenes. And since it's the first time through, a lot of dialogue and stuff, even when it's not a cutscene per se. And the first time through, you really want to listen to it all. So, I mean, I imagine in future runs, it'll be a little bit shorter, but I'd say I'm about a third of the way through, judging on what I know about Final Fantasy VII. And as far as this game is obviously not the full Final Fantasy VII experience that we all know from, years past on the PS1. It is just simply the first of potentially 3 or 4, who knows how many at this point. But anyway, judging by where I am now and where I'm presuming the game is going to end, I'm probably about a third of the way through.
Okay.
But it's really great. Let's see. I got a bunch of notes, and they're all just kind of a mangled. Let's see. So the game starts out with the demo. You're rating if you've played the demo. Okay. Before I talk anymore, I'm going to say that I'm not going to talk about story-specific spoilers, but I can't promise that something won't slip, and that I won't talk about something that you guys don't like or don't want to hear because you want to go in fresh. So here's your warning right now.
So there may be some gameplay spoilers, but we're going to try to stay away from story spoilers.
Right. As much as I can. I will reference a few things here and there to highlight the changes they've made. And this game is also, 20 some odd years old now, 23 years old. So there are certain just generic beats that have been talked about at this point. And it's not that
But we're going to keep it as spoiler free as we can.
As spoiler free as possible, but just be forewarned. So, starts out with the raid on the Mako reactor, which is basically the original demo and the original first hour or 30 minutes of the game, and it takes about 45 minutes to get through it this time as well. And that's all pretty much identical. I don't think anything was different until you escape the exploding reactor, and then the game picks up. And man, it's so familiar because they're doing such a good job translating every little thing, every step that you took in the old game, you're taking in this one, but they're drawing it out in a way that would, in a lesser game, feel like disgusting, boring filler. But in this one, it feels perfect, feels right at home. It feels like we talk about like when you see a game up-resed, and it's like, oh, that's how I remember it. Like when Wind Waker came out, everyone's like, this looks amazing, and then you went back and looked at the GameCube. Wind Waker for the Wii U, and then you go back and look at the GameCube. Oh, it was actually kind of ugly back then. They did quite a bit. The game's story and gameplay feel in this new one like they did when you played the original, and it's amazing that they're able to do that, even though it's not turn-based. But everything is still intact, like weapons and materia, and the characters are there, like Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse, who in the first one, they're not throwaway characters, but they're certainly side characters. They are in no way main characters. They have very flat, if they have personalities at all, that aren't like, oh, that's the fat guy. They have very limited personalities, like, oh, that guy's fat, and that guy's a girl, and Cloud meets them, and then they leave.
That guy's a girl.
That guy's a girl. Exactly. Jesse was a man in the original one, and now and she likes Cloud a lot. And they definitely want you to know that she likes Cloud a lot. And it's really important. It's really important that they know, or that they make you know that Jesse likes Cloud a lot. And that's all I'm going to say on that. Because this game's about love triangles, layered on love triangles, in addition to all the cool anime stuff. Already, though, right at the beginning, there's a lot of story things that they've already changed. So they're planting seeds specifically in regards to Sephiroth. And everybody knows Sephiroth. Everybody knows he's the bad guy. But like in the original, it's not clear for a little while. You hear his name a couple times, but then you don't even like see him for the first time for a little while before he becomes the main antagonist of the game. Well, considering you're not going to necessarily get to that part in this by the end, again, I don't know for sure, but I have to think that going by what I know, that part wouldn't come soon, that they're already laying seeds via visions and like flashbacks and stuff with Cloud, especially because he has a lot of like mental stuff going on, and his past is a mystery, and that's a huge part of the game. And it's interesting to see that they're doing that. So on top of, you've got characters that are being fleshed out in this really meaningful way that makes you care about them, and it's going to be really important that you care about them because you're saving the world. And what's the point of saving a world that you don't care about and that has people that are just like, polygons that don't mean anything? And as kids, you love that. You find a way and you fill in your own imagination. But because they can and they did, they're creating Wedge is just the fat guy. He's nothing. There's nothing to him. But now you love him. He's amazing, and he's your best friend. He calls you bro constantly, and Cloud hates it. He's like, "Don't call me bro." And, all right, bro, and he's got a bunch of cats. Like he's a crazy cat lady. He has like 7 of them, and so I mean, and this all happens in like the first hour and a half. I've just described only about the first hour and a half, and I fell in love with the game that quickly.
How much of that was nostalgia, and how much of that was like, just this is a good game?
It's both. So
but like me, I have no nostalgia for this.
You don't, and I've listened to a few people who don't have nostalgia for it. They've tried and played it, and they can't get podcasters. That is, not real life people, because all the real life people I know who are playing it have played the original. And they're just super excited for it.
Sure.
But I've seen and heard a lot of opinions of people who are just playing this game pretty much, with no real connection to the original Final Fantasy VII, and they're calling it their game of the year or one of the best JRPGs they've ever played. And I'm not surprised by that, because it's really good. I will say, though, that this game will mean so much more to you if you can, and not even that, you don't even have to love the old game, but you won't appreciate just how fine a job they did translating it to this modern era if you don't know what they're translating, That
was one question I had for you. Like, so I read an article that said that this particular person, I can't remember the article, but they said they actually welcomed the changes, that they liked them. And they said something to the effect of like, this game couldn't be recreated in its original format because you couldn't have the same development culture that you had back when this game was developed, where like anything goes, blah, blah, blah. I didn't really understand that remark.
That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, I just wanted to see if it was like crazy.
Yeah, no, that doesn't, like, you could have made a 1-for-1 with better graphics and, a little fleshed out here and there, like with a bigger city to explore and stuff like that. But you could have, like, I can already see though, like there's been parts where I'm like, this is lasting a long time. I don't dislike it. But I could also see where this didn't have to happen. You didn't have to go down this, extra long route, fight these people, and have these conversations along the way that flesh out the characters, especially Barrett and Tifa at the beginning, because you spend a lot of time with them before you meet the other characters later on. But they don't have to have happened. But I'm really glad that they did, because it just keeps piling on and adding to the experience. But there is a reality out there where you could have made Final Fantasy VII Remake in a single 60-hour game, Like 30 hours is not long compared to The Witcher. 30 hours is not long compared to probably what Cyberpunk will be. People are going to eat those games up and not have a problem with it. And so there's no reason that this game couldn't have been 60 hours too, come out 2 more years later or whatever, if it was necessary to make it that much longer. And then, just, okay, well, here it was. And it probably would have been really good too. But I don't think it would have been as good as what we're going to end up getting. Again, I'm only a third of the way through, so we'll see. We'll see by next week and the week after that, because I'm sure it'll take me a couple more weeks to beat it. But
okay. Well,
so, to sum up, no, absolutely do not need to have played the originals to appreciate this game. This is a amazing, amazing game on its own, and it's a totally new game. It doesn't rely on nostalgia at all, but it is definitely there for people who have played that game and can appreciate the way they've translated both characters, dialogue, environments, themes, and systems over to this new game.
I had a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you overall, you really enjoyed it, which is awesome. Like I said, I enjoyed the demo very much. One problem, it wasn't even a problem, where I could see myself getting hung up, is that the combat was so intense in the intro. There was so much going on, and I guess maybe part of that was like learning the new battle systems. Does it become less intense, and is there a good way of kind of slowing down the combat so that you can make it a little more manageable for yourself?
Does it become less intense? Yes, because the beginning it is high octane. You're raiding the Mako reactor. You're fighting. You're coming in to blow it up, and it's supposed to feel energetic and exciting. You're jumping off the train, all that stuff. Things definitely die down for a little bit, almost to the point where it gets a little slow. Like, I'm not sure you would dislike this game for any one aspect. Like, you're not, like, I haven't found a thing like, oh, Jason will hate that. Like, you might not love certain dialogue options or certain characters or whatever, but you've already played the demo, so you have an idea of what the combat is, which is a really good example of what the combat's going to be for the rest of the game. There's more spells, you're going to get more weapons, you're going to
How many NPCs do you control at any given time? Because that was one thing that was kind of overwhelming, is just trying to figure out what 2 people were doing, let alone how many could you add?
So far, I've had a maximum of 2. Because that's just what the story's dictated. Like,
gotcha.
Both in the previous game and this one, everything makes sense so far. Like, I haven't had an opportunity to. I think if I had to guess, they'll do the original thing where you could only have 3 people in a party. So you would control one character while the AI took care of the other 2 as you swap between them and stuff.
Right.
But eventually, you'll have a large cast of characters to choose from. But at the same time, you'll probably only be able to have 3 active party members. Now, they might get cute or clever with what they might do with a 4th and a 5th person. Like, oh, they're there, but in this really kind of more passive supporting role where you can't switch to them and do anything. But I don't know. Because, again, I haven't gotten to a point where that's even a possibility yet. So we'll see. But you said it was chaotic. It is chaotic, especially the boss fights, which I've been through. I went through 2 more what I would call boss fights, like really big ones, like the Scorpion boss, like the Scorpion guard thing. And those are still really intense. And I still haven't necessarily wrapped my head around the whole concept. So in this game, every enemy has a stagger bar, which is separate from their hit points. And as you attack them in different ways, so some might be weak to swords or physical attacks, or they might be weak to magic or a specific element of magic like fire. Whenever you do the thing that they're weak to, the stagger bar goes up a little faster. And then if you complete the stagger bar, they pretty much just go stun, and you can wail on them, and it's really fun. I'm finding it very difficult, even when I know what I'm supposed to do. Because you can cast a spell that basically says, these are their weak points, this is their tactics, go nuts. And even when I know those things, it's very tricky sometimes to get that stagger status. And at which point it's very hard to do damage. And I don't know how much of that's intentional, how much of that's on me. And then I'm just having kind of a rough time taking damage. Like, I did die a couple times. One wasn't even a boss fight. It was just a slightly stronger enemy that had appeared as part of like this kind of like, it wasn't a cutscene, but it was like an event. It wasn't just a random encounter. It was specifically like a story encounter. And like, I wasn't getting it. And then I died, and you can't heal yourself if you don't have like one of those gauge things. And I couldn't engage with him without getting hit, and so I died. And it's just kind of been a theme that's been repeating. Like, it's not super hard. It's only happened a couple times, but it's not necessarily gelling with me how much dodging and blocking I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I'm not able to read patterns as well, and I think it's just me being bad at the game.
Well, you're also switching between 2 different characters, so it's just. And they moved a little bit differently, and they have different attacks, and it's just like it's hard. But I will say this: it was a lot of fun.
It is that never stopped being true,
right? And as intense as that boss in the demo is, I mean, I died once, and then I had to replay a short section, and I beat him the second time. I mean, I was down to probably like 5% of my life on both of my characters. I mean, it was so intense and fun. I don't know how else to describe it. So I don't let me dissuade anybody from playing it. I would certainly encourage you to go out there and play the demo before dropping $60 on this. But I mean, I had a lot of fun with it. I just don't know if I want to spend 30 hours with it. That's all.
Yeah. And so,
just because I have like this JRPG aversion. That's all. It's a me thing, not a judgment on the game.
That's so good, though. Oh, that's so good.
I mean, you're talking about it, hearing you talk about it makes me want to play it.
You should. But
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to talk a little bit more about combat.
Oh, yeah.
So between bosses, though, combat is usually very obvious when it's going to occur. There's like these little areas, and it's almost, it's definitely quote unquote immersion breaking. It's like, oh, I'm about to enter an area where enemies might show up. Versus like I'm just walking down a path where nothing's going to happen versus I'm in a town where obviously there are no enemies.
Sure. That's a pretty standard trope.
Yeah, it's not organic, but it's also nothing new.
Yeah.
But those encounters are pretty easy. I've met a couple enemy types that I have no desire to ever fight again, but they keep showing up, and those, but every game has that. It's just, it's a very JRPG thing. Not everything's going to be balanced for fun and awesomeness at every single moment. But
what I found with those kind of mini encounters is that you don't even necessarily have to slow down the combat to beat those enemies. A lot of times you can just do the real-time combat and get rid of them and keep going on with your life.
Yeah, it's pretty easy, and it gets easier, especially as you get more abilities and more materia, which controls your certain other abilities and certain spells you can cast. And when you also get more party members, obviously it becomes easier as they have different tools at their disposal to take down enemies. Specifically, Barrett, for instance, has a gun on his arm. He has a gun for an arm, and so there are certain enemies that just zip around or fly. And while Cloud can kind of like auto jump to the target when you start swinging at them, it's still not as effective as when they're on the ground. So you do want to switch to him. And if you don't have him in the party when those people occur, which does happen occasionally, it's kind of awkward to be fighting like flying dragons when you're Tifa with her fists and Cloud with his sword. And it's like, well, that was kind of weird.
You can't switch him out?
He wasn't there. He wasn't,
okay.
Like the story had him out of, he wasn't a part of the party at the moment.
Gotcha. Which
happens, a lot in the beginning. Eventually, as is almost, true with any JRPG you'll ever play with a, party larger than the, minimum number of characters you can have, that happens on and off at the beginning. And eventually, everybody gets together and everybody stays together, except for maybe some other reason at the late game where somebody might leave the party for some reason. But
interesting. Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about with Final Fantasy VII? Because I do have one more question for you.
Yeah, let me go through a few more things that I liked.
Totally.
I love the themes. They haven't changed at all, but they're more relevant than ever. So, you've got a bunch of eco-terrorists, as they're referred to, and technically that's what they are. They are blowing stuff up for private corporations that are draining the planet dry of the precious, Mako/Lifestream. But unlike oil for our planet, which is just a fuel resource, this thing, it is literally the lifeblood of the planet, and everybody knows it. And they make this point to show that people know what Shinra is doing, Shinra being the big bad company, and they don't care or they can't do anything about it. But everybody knows that this will destroy the planet, not just like run out eventually and then, oh no, what do we do for energy? This is going to kill the planet. They're sucking the lifeblood out of it, which is a big deal these days. Environmentalism is very, more prevalent than it's ever been.
It's very prescient.
Yes, prescient. Very good, Jason. Very big word. You've got Barrett, who in the beginning, he's a bit of a caricature if you've played the demo and never played the other game. But even if you have played the original, he's a bit of a caricature the whole time. A bit of a racist caricature. They have done a lot with his character, both thematically and like the physical design, that I just really appreciate. Like, he has become one of my favorite characters in the game. This remake so far. I mean, Cloud's great, Tifa's great, they're all great, but Barrett, I am very interested to see, because Barrett has a daughter, and a lot of reasons for doing what he's doing, and they're really good reasons. There's a really good story there that they just didn't quite hit in the original, and the voice actor for him is very good. Like, he's not always yelling; he's yelling a lot. He's trying to motivate his troops and his freedom fighters, as he would refer to them, but he has his softer moments, his quieter moments, his more contemplative moments, and the guy's got range, the voice actor. He's doing a really good job capturing this character. Something I do not like. I don't like Tifa too much yet. I wish they'd toned her back visually. I know she was, the big boobed, mini skirt wearing, video game girl that was just all the rage back then. And they would have never gotten away with toning her down physically, but it's too much. It's weird. There's not a single other character on screen yet that looks anything like her. Like, why is she dressed so minimally? It's stupid. It doesn't make sense. And they should have been a little bit more bold to roll that back, because like, her sexuality is not a part of her character in almost any way. Like, both in the original and so far in this one, she's very timid for the most part. She's like hopeful and happy, but she's not like that's not her. That's not the character that she is. So it's weird that it's such a huge focus still. So
that is interesting.
She also acts like a very stereotypical anime character in her animations. So she does weird things like, just way too many hand motions, and she pumps her fist a lot. She bends over at the waist and just like kind of winks, and it's like it just doesn't line up with the dialogue and the way that, because the voice actress is good, but she's talking like a normal person, and then you've got this character model that's kind of bouncing around just a little too much, and it's like they did so much to make these people seem so real. And almost every character does, and then you get Tifa acting like this. I'm like, real people don't do this. Why are you making her act like this? Why did you animate her this way? And some of it's because it's like they reuse the animations a lot, and so it seems weird, and it's cheap to just like, do that instead of making... Like, you can see the difference in this game, which still took a long time, and something like The Last of Us 2 or God of War, where they spent those extra 2 years probably making everybody's movements exactly what they wanted them to be.
Sure. They mocapped everything.
Exactly. Yeah, there's probably no mocap on this if I had to guess.
Do you think some of that plays to the Japanese audience more so 100%. Than...
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I just don't like it. I just don't.
Yeah. Well, you're a Westerner.
It's I liked it then, and I like it. It has its place, and that's the thing. Like, but it's not an anime, and it doesn't look like an anime. It looks real, and everybody is real for the most part. Even Tifa has a really good, backstory, personality, motivations, and all that stuff is there. And I'm sure by the end, I'll mostly love the character and just find these to be mild irritations. But
sure,
it's just this, okay, I guess we had to do a little bit of it. Couldn't get rid of all of it. But she is the best to fight with. She's the most fun. You don't get to use her in the demo, but she's really good in this. She's fast, but she hits really hard. And, she's a martial artist, so all her abilities revolve around, doing flips and kicks and stuff and combos. And if I can play her instead of Cloud, I usually do. Unless he's got some of his, unless one of his strengths is more needed in that particular battle. But for the most part, because you can set your party leader, so you're always walking around as Cloud. But then when battle starts, it'll switch to the party leader, whoever that is, and I set her as my leader if I can. Just wail on enemies. It's a lot of fun. Let's see. It's got collectible music tracks, so it's got all these... the music's so good. It's very interestingly utilized. So, for instance, their JRPGs have this, especially classic ones, have this thing called a overworld, or a world map, which you'd leave the town and you'd be like a teeny tiny version of yourself on a slightly larger, plane that would show you traveling across the world to the next town. Games don't do that anymore, and I can't imagine that they're going to do anything like that for this one. So what do you do with the soundtrack in regards to the overworld music? Well, they found ways to just kind of weave it in through scenes and areas of the map in really interesting ways. So a lot of music that you wouldn't hear until much later in the game has made its way into already the first 12 hours of this first part. And I find, for the most part, it works, and it works really well. And it's just that is definitely a nostalgia moment, because you wouldn't recognize them if you didn't know them. But because I do, it's like, oh wow, that's there. But it works so well here, and you imagine that they'll continue to reuse those tracks, because why not? But it's just really cool that they didn't restrict themselves to stuff that only happened in the in those parts of the game.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
So a few things this game is not. It's not open world. There is no exploration. Like, the most exploration is there's a fork in the road. One's a dead end that has a treasure chest, and one is the way forward. So maybe they're gonna open it up at some point. I know Final Fantasy 15 had that aspect, but even that game, halfway through, became basically a hallway simulator, and you just ran on the rails basically where they told you to. And it's not quite you do have freedom to walk around a town and go do a side quest and then go to one of three wild areas, but it's nothing like what people who like a more open, free experience. So if that is a deal breaker, you wouldn't want to do that, or you wouldn't want to play this necessarily.
I don't think that should be a deal breaker for anybody. It's just, are you in the mood for it or not?
Right. The way some people talk about, it is a deal breaker for them, and that's fine, I guess. But
You gotta have your mind a little more open than that, I think.
I would agree.
But at the same time, I'm not going to tell you to spend $60 if you're not in the mood for that.
I will. It's homework. You have to do it. It's a very well told story that seems like it's only getting better as it goes along, but it's also still at the same time not God of War or The Last of Us. It's not that very cinematic experience. There's still a somewhat disjointedness to certain conversations and people's actions. It's not a singular story. There's the main story, and it's taking center stage for sure. But if you want that really polished story, that's not exactly what this is offering. But it is still very good, and they're telling it in a really great way so far. It's not Dark Souls, so like just combat wise, it's hectic, and you will take damage. And even though you're dodge rolling it, like I don't think anyone's going to mistake this for Dark Souls, but like depending on where you're coming from, like it's just not that kind of game. But obviously, it's not turn-based either. It's this weird kind of in between Devil May Cry / turn-based JRPG / maybe a little bit of Dark Soulsiness to it, because you have blocks, and while you can't necessarily parry certain enemies, they do react a certain way depending on what they do if you block them. So it's like a parry, and then you can kind of counterattack for more damage and more stagger meter. So I don't know.
Is the combat for the most part? Is the demo representative of the combat throughout that you've seen so far?
Yeah, okay. For sure. It's only going to get better too. From if that was your only experience so far, it just gets more. You get more materia, like I said, more weapons, and the way they do weapons is really interesting.
So my question for you is, Karch, you kind of alluded to it, but would you recommend people spend $60 and 30 hours of their time on this game? Or if they weren't in a rush, would you say, wait for the inevitable collection when this is all finally out into the world?
Never wait for the whole thing. I have no idea what that looks like. I only because I honestly don't know how long that would be. And there is a second game coming. They're already working on it. And I have to imagine it's a lot sooner. Like, if I'm being optimistic, it's only 2 years away. If I'm being realistic, it's probably 3.5 years away, which is still so long. It seems like wait, because again, I don't know where this game ends, but compared to the full story, if they're going to try to go through all the main beats, they're still so early in it. Like, if you were to replicate what this game did, like 1-to-1 for the rest of the known Final Fantasy VII plot, it's going to take like 6 games, which is obviously impossible. So I really I'll have a better idea and better, speculation once I get to the end. But no, I wouldn't wait for like a compilation. That's way too much to do at once. Once it's done, I would never want to play through all of what they're going to eventually have to offer at once.
Yeah.
And it's just going to take too long. You'll just never play it at that point. If you
how many hours was the first game? Or how many hours was the original?
The original can be done in 30-35 hours, no problem. And even
then why is this first part stretched so much?
It's an artistic choice, really, for the most part. People will say, "Oh, they wanted more money," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course they do, and they're gonna get it doing it this way." But and as I mentioned earlier, in an alternate reality, they make a $60 game or 60-hour game that's just a full remake. But it's really hard to say because I haven't gotten to certain parts I know are coming, and I can't talk about them without spoiling it, even though I know they're coming. But I feel like they're going to hit on a level that they never could have before or wouldn't have, even if you had done the whole game in a single setting, because of the time and care they're taking in making this world feel so much bigger. You go walk around, there's people. The city of Midgar is alive. You've got middle managers on the train yelling at Barrett, who's talking about the planet, but they're company businessmen, but they're brainwashed and they don't know. All they know is the company, but they think they're doing the right thing. And there's just you're just never going to get that if you try to squeeze it all in to the original time frame or even just a slightly longer one. And again, it's not that it's impossible. It's just that it wouldn't be the same. But I strongly recommend that anybody who likes Final Fantasy has this game or plans on getting it as soon as their pocketbook and time allows. That's obviously true. But if you've always wanted to try Final Fantasy VII or you couldn't get into it because of the turn-based, more kind of like, classic JRPG stuff, get this game because it throws off so much of those, like, of what holds it back in a lot of people's minds without losing really anything. Like, I don't feel for a second like I'm missing something that the original game had that this one didn't. Except for the fact that I'm not going to get to finish it, the full story. Like, sure. No matter how good this ends, I will still be disappointed that I have to wait so long for just part 2 of what will probably be at least 3 parts.
We'll savor it.
I'm going to.
Well, with all that said, I suppose this is kind of like a question that's not even worth asking, but is there anything else you wish you were playing right now?
I wish I was playing more of this right now.
I wish I was done recording this podcast so I could go play more Final Fantasy VII.
I was in tears. Jason made me do this. I wanted to play more, and he said I could, and I had to talk about it instead.
I made him go to work. Well, for me, I'm kind of in an interesting juncture. I'm like facing this paradox of choice. We have all these gaming streaming services that I have access to, all these spring sales going on, all these quarantine sales going on. And I'm having the VR issues, which is kind of turning me off from playing more Half-Life Alyx. So with all that being said, I am on the hunt for something to play, and I just don't know what's going to satiate me. I saw the BioShock collection on sale for PC for like $20. And I really thought about maybe picking it up. And I know that they just announced that Switch version, but like, I don't know. I feel like it could look so good on my computer, and I would have, first person shooter controls with a mouse and keyboard. We'll see if that happens. It may not.
You can't leave me, man. We're supposed to split it.
I know. And you and I are supposed to play, Sea of Thieves with Sean tomorrow. So.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that.
Don't forget about that. We need to figure out which version we're supposed to download because there's 2 versions on Game Pass.
All right. Hopefully I can still make it. I don't, we'll talk about that later.
Okay. Sean, if he ditches us, then you need to do something punitive for next week. I don't know what.
But, take away the Patreon subscription.
Right. So that's all I had for that.
Why
we do have a... Sorry, go ahead.
Why don't you play Final Fantasy VII?
Oh. Well, I presume you're going to be playing it.
I don't think I think we can play it at the same time.
Really?
I think so.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Because
you got to start it and get through the demo again at least, and then.
Gosh, I just don't know if I want to commit 30 hours to it. I don't know if I'm in the mood for that.
Oh boy. All right, let's get to some questions from our listener question count has doubled since last week.
Hot diggity dog.
Hot diggity dog. So we'll start with Sean, oldest, best listener. Sorry, Josh. Kidding. His question for the week is on graphics. Big AAA graphics get better and better, and I assume are a large driver for the increase in costs. What are your guys' thoughts? Are graphics being good enough? Do you want photo... I got it. Are graphics good enough, or do you want photorealistic? Do you want them to push the boundaries even more? What do you think, Jason?
For me, call me old school, but the graphics aren't necessarily a turnoff. Like, I don't want every game to be photorealistic. I think you have to give developers the latitude to make artistic choices. And sometimes that comes out for the better, and you see games that are really artistic like Journey, or you see games like Breath of the Wild that have a very intentional art style that it wouldn't lend itself to being photorealistic. And then you see games like, what was the one that you and I did not like where you're schizophrenic and they talk in your ear?
Hellblade.
Yeah. You see like Hellblade, where those graphics are incredible for the size of the studio. I'm not going to sit here and say that the graphics being better don't increase the development cost. But I don't always think that's the right choice for everybody. I think you do have to just let them make what they want to make. And I don't think things necessarily benefit from just upping the graphics. What do you think, Karch?
Pretty much the same thing. I'd be content as a pig in mud to, play my PS1 and SNES games for the rest of my life if I had to. If you said, "Oh, Karch, you can only play these games," I'm like, "Oh, shucks, I guess I'll just have fun for the rest of my life." And I wouldn't care that, especially knowing what graphics are today, I wouldn't care. It's fun for me because a game is so much more than just the fidelity of its textures and whatnot. Even as I go through Final Fantasy VII, it's a phenomenal looking game, and I'm not running it on a PS4 Pro, so I don't know how much better it does look on those. But there are places where the textures, they just suck. They're not good. The doors look terrible, and but it doesn't matter. And how much more do you really squeeze out of a game? How much more time does it take to make those doors look good? And then what did you get out of it? How much did you spend, both time and money and personnel, to make every inch of it look amazing? Because what's good is a photorealistic model if the rest of the background doesn't look good. So you got to make it all look good, which goes to my other point, which is more than graphics necessarily. I care about cohesion. I want everything to fit. The audio, the animations, the graphics, they should all gel together. There's nothing worse than a really cool action scene that has awful audio, and not just the music, but the sound mixing, the way just the way it sounds and the way it's timed with the animations. And if that's not there, it doesn't matter how good it looks. And I would always take a better finished final product that just fits with the vision of the game and what the developer wants and what you're experiencing than just to make sure it looks pretty.
Totally agree. And there's other things that I think, as us being kind of we're not game developers, I think there are other things out there that exist that we don't even know how much they could possibly enhance a game without just making those character models look photorealistic. For instance, I think with ray tracing, the lighting physics, having the ability to simulate how light would actually behave in that environment, that goes a long way into making the overall product look better and enhancing it. And it's just something you wouldn't even think about, say 5-10 years ago. So there's probably other things like that we just don't even know that are technical limitations that eventually we will overcome that will lead to having better products.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, on the whole, we're dummies, and what do we know except, it looks good, or it looks bad, or it looks okay. But just to answer the question, overall, graphics are obviously not the be-all, end-all. No, nothing is. Gameplay isn't the be-all, end-all. Some people say that, and I don't think that's true either. Graphics are very important, as much as story is, as much as music is, depending on the genre. Sure. But we're seeing this, we're seeing people, especially indie developers, find out how you can meld genres and put, things in it that didn't exist before or make sense before, because they're limited in how much time and money they have to make graphics look really good. I see a dozen games a week on the eShop or some other store that it's clear that they didn't want to make a pixel game. And that's fine because there's so many out there, but because they're a small studio, it's the best you could do looks like garbage compared to not garbage. That's mean, but it doesn't look great, and it looks like an indie game. There's that one that Sean linked to us that looks really fun, maybe, but you can just tell it looks super. The assets are really basic, and that the one that looks like a Breath of the Wild clone. Do you remember that one?
No.
Oh, okay. But my point is when indie studios try to go big on graphics, you can tell that they're trying, because it always comes up short. And I just kind of pass on those games because in that moment, for some reason, graphics do matter to me. It's this weird, I guess you want to call it an uncanny valley almost, but not in the traditional sense of the phrase.
Sure. It's yeah. It's it's almost good, but it's not.
Right. You can see too many of the strings attached and all that.
Right. I definitely got that feeling playing, say, Crackdown 3. And even that's from a big studio. And I'm just this looks like Xbox 360, and it's 2020, and I just, Not for me.
No, it wasn't for anybody. All right.
So we have, thank you, Sean. We have another listener question, which I'm pretty jacked. Like Karch said, we doubled the amount of listener questions, so that's awesome. This one comes from Josh. He didn't send in an exact question per se. He just wanted to know our opinion on something. So with the DualSense, information that the new PlayStation 5 controller that we received was last week or the week before, one thing we learned is that it's going to have a built-in microphone, which is really a cool feature. What people are wondering about is this potentially a privacy issue? Because apparently it'll be up to the game developer whether or not the microphone's on or off by default. And, to me, that's like, okay, whatever. I mean, Amazon's always listening. Google's always listening. Apple's always listening. I'm always going to have my phone on me. But at the same time, Sony has a track record of handling personal data and has a history of leaks. And so that's the question is, do we trust him with this?
Yeah, and I still do feel this way mostly, but I was going to just be like, who cares? For most of the reasons you just said, like, this is nothing new. Everything's always listening, and we lost that fight. The common man has lost the privacy fight, at least when it comes to our stupid personal devices and listening to us. But you raise a good point. At least for the most part, the nefarious things they do with their personal data is still fairly secure. But Sony has dropped the ball a few times in the past on in dumb ways too, like with leaking personal data and stuff like that. So that's a little concerning, but if it is something to worry about, there will be a way to figure out how to turn it off or get a different controller or not use it if it really is that big a deal. It just matters how important it is to you. And, if it means don't get this console because you can't do anything about the controllers that come with it, then that's the path you take. But that's not the path I'll be taking. I'll be getting it, and I'll be using this microphone because I don't want to mess with plugging something else in.
Well, and I guess for me, this isn't that big of an issue. I mean, if you've had a PlayStation Eye camera, then Sony's probably been listening to you for 5 years, and nothing's come of it that you know of anyway. Not to mention with this console being backwards compatible, I do wonder, will it be backwards compatible with the DualShock 4, at least for PlayStation 4 titles? So I guess that's always kind of potentially an option too.
It better be.
Yeah. I mean, if for anything, it'd be nice to already have 2 controllers at launch.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Even though my battery life on mine is like 4 hours.
I never play more than 4 hours in a single sitting, so if mine's 4 hours, then it doesn't matter.
I don't want to plug it in to charge every time I'm finished.
Yeah, because plugging it in every time you finish playing, it's almost the worst thing. But it's not the worst thing. It's not the worst.
Oh boy, here we go.
All right, Karch. You and I, it's time to figure out the age-old question that we've been asking ourselves for the past 7 weeks. Is Greg the worst?
Not today.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. Greg's going to pick up that phone.
You think he's going to pick up the phone?
Rub it in your face. He's going to be like, Jay, I heard you. I felt you through the force. I felt Karch's positive energy. And you can suck it.
I'm really afraid you're going to be right because we decided before we started recording that we were going to play a little game today with this segment. We decided that we're each going to pick and make a prediction. Karch, you've obviously already predicted Greg's going to answer the phone. So if Greg's answers the phone, then I have to play an hour of a game of your choice. And I know what you're going to pick is probably something I'll hate. Now, if I win and Greg does not answer the phone, then I have a game that I want you to play an hour of for this next week. And we're going to report back on what we've played.
Sounds great.
Okay, let's see. Let me get Greg pulled up here.
Are we going to say the games? Or are we going to keep it a secret?
Oh, no, we're going to say the games once we figure out
Okay. Pick up the phone and don't prove me wrong.
I really thought he was going to.
It's got like one more ring in it. Oh no, I don't feel it anymore. Oh no! Oh no!
Oh.
Hi, you've reached Greg Artolano.
Oh man!
His voice. That's Greg. This counts. And
Nope. And you know the funny thing is that if you would have let me pick first, I would have picked that Greg was going to answer the phone because he's been texting me during us recording.
Okay, so the odds were in my favor. I just still lost. It happens.
Yeah, well, Okay, so what you're going to play an hour of? It's a Devolver Digital game.
Well, let's see. This isn't fair because this sounds good, but it's probably not going to be good.
And I just linked you to it. It's called Hatful Boyfriend.
Oh, no. See, this is ironic. This is going to be fantastic. If you guys don't know, Hatful Boyfriend is a parody of a visual novel where you date a bunch of people, except instead of people, or women in this case, as it usually is, it's pigeons and birds.
It looks so stupid.
That'd be so good. Is it on Xbox?
Yeah, it's on Game Pass for PC. So the description says, "Congratulations, you've been accepted as the only human student at a prestigious St. Pigeonations Institute, a school for talented birds. Roam the halls and find love in between classes as a student at the world's greatest pigeon high school in the delightful Hatful Boyfriend."
No, this is a cult classic. You've goofed.
Are you sure?
Dude, people love this game because
of Are you serious?
This is an intentional parody, but you've already said it, so I'm going to have a great time with Hatful Boyfriend.
Okay, great. Well, then enjoy your hour with it.
I'll beat it.
You're going to beat it?
No, probably not.
Okay, well, yeah. So play an hour of that and then report back and let us know next week what you thought of it.
Clicking install right now. Only 1.2 gigs, so if I want
it's not bad. It should install like in an hour.
One day we'll stream this stuff when we do these.
Oh, man, I can't wait.
Well, baby steps, so.
We're going to have the ability.
Yeah. It's a good stream game, too, because, people can interact and help you make, because, it's just constant dialogue choice after dialogue choice.
Well, if you can find a way to record your, not the audio, but even just the video, find a way to screen record that, I will put that video and overlay us talking about it on the YouTube next week.
Love it. I'll see what I can do.
Okay, sweet. So, guys, that is all I think we have for this week. Go and check us out. Find us at neverfreetoplay.com or patreon.com/neverfreetoplay. Go follow us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, leave us comments. We hope you guys all have a fantastic week. We will try, but we are never free to play.
Greg's the worst.
Greg's the worst. Yeah, I can't believe you didn't answer.
Oh, man.
But, I mean, you, at least you got a good game out of it.
I did. I love how hard you tried to find a bad one.
It looks so bad. Well, and here's the thing, though.
It released in 2019. When did it actually release?
I didn't want to punish you too much.
Dude, that's the point, dude.
Well, but, I mean, okay, so I saw Devolver Digital, and I assumed, maybe it's okay.
Yeah, 2011.
But then,
it's a pretty old
one. But then I
one.
saw the art for it, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Japanese doujin soft otome visual novel released in 2011.